This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an exclusive interview with Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman, NITI Aayog, on the economic survey and prospects for future. The interviewer is Santosh Tiwari, economic analyst.
Economic survey has projected 9.2% growth for the current financial year and GDP growth rate of 8 to 8.5% in the next financial year, which is 2022-23. It also has said the way the government has taken up the pandemic challenge that has been very successful, and government supply side reforms preparing economy for sustained long-term expansion has been something which is a bright spot in terms of policy handling by the government. And the capital expenditure also has grown by 13.5% year-on-year during April-November 2021. Foreign exchange reserves touch $633 billion. That has been a bright spot again. And macroeconomic stability indicators suggest economy is well placed to take on challenges of 2022-23. There are massive growth in revenue receipts, which indicates for a bright future and higher growth possibilities for the next year. In social sector also, expenditure on social sector social services, as proportion of GDP has increased to 8.6% in 2021-22 as compared to 6.2% in 2014-15. With the revival of economy, employment indicators have bounced back to pre-pandemic levels during last quarter of 2020-21. Merchandise exports have also been very encouraging, and imports rebounded strongly and have surpassed pre-COVID levels. The bank credit has also accelerated to 9.2% as on 31st of December 2021. And food inflation averaged at a low of 2.9% in 2021 April to December period. Effective supply side management has kept prices of most essential commodities under control. Economic survey has also pitched for larger privatization and disinvestment of public sector companies. Apart from that, it has also pitched for clean energy transition at a rapid pace. So these are all bright spots which have been brought out by the economic survey for 2021-22. The basic fact is that economic survey is putting India on a rapid growth path in the coming few years. We are now joined by Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, to discuss these features of the economic survey. Welcome to All India Radio, Dr. Rajiv Kumar. To begin with, Dr. Kumar, Economic Survey has projected that for this financial year, the growth rate will be 9.2%, and for the next financial year, the growth rate has been projected to be 8 to 8.5%. From where we were 1 year back, this growth rate looks quite good, and it seems that the economy is now out of the challenges, not completely, but at least which would ease the policymakers and the government and people at large.
Santoshji, you are absolutely right. We are out of the woods pretty much in terms of the economic performance, and our GDP growth rate of 9.2%, even if it comes in a little shade lower at 9, let's say, will be very good, because it will imply that our GDP level is now higher than the pre-pandemic levels of 2019-20. So we have recovered the lost ground. And then going forward, economic survey points out that we will have 8.5% growth. Now this, I'm told, and I've confirmed, is lower than what the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, projects India's growth rate to be, and that they project it to be 9%. So the survey has been, let's say, a shade conservative in projecting our growth rate. So my own understanding would be that Indian economy in 2022-23 will grow between 8.5% to 9%. So I won't be surprised if there is an upside to this growth. But it's better to be conservative so that you're not disappointed. I go along with the economic survey. And let me add that the survey's assumptions on which the growth estimate is based are very sound. They're talking about the recovery in manufacturing, in the services, which had suffered the most, and also in private investment and consumption. And of course, the government will do its role in expanding the capital expenditure on public infrastructure. So I think altogether, we are now on a trajectory of rapid and sustained growth in the years to come. And that's very good news for all of us, especially for employment generation and for macroeconomic stability going forward.
And one more bright spot which Economic Survey has brought out, and which has been in the talk across the world also, is the way India has tackled the pandemic challenge. The way healthcare infrastructure, the way vaccination has been done, the way vaccination program is running right now, and also the way Indian production system, took up the challenge of producing the kits, the requirements in terms of healthcare and pharma. All these things have set an example for the whole world in how to manage pandemics like these. And the government from its own side also has stepped up the expenditure in the financial year quite a lot. How do you see things in healthcare going from here? Because Economic Survey has mentioned that the response of Indian government in terms of, first of all, understanding what is required to be done and then bit by bit doing what was to be done rather than doing it at one go and then waiting for the results has succeeded in a big way. So from here, how do you see Economic Survey's prescription, and also how do you see as policymakers the health challenge tackling of Indian government going forward?
You're absolutely right. The Indian response to the pandemic, the health response has been quite exemplary actually, and it served as an exemplar to a large number of countries, including the developed and advanced countries. We've done better than many advanced economies as well, having delivered 150 crore doses in this 1 year has been phenomenal. And as a result, 90% of our adult population now has got the first dose vaccination. 70% has been fully vaccinated. This is what is going to be really important going forward, because the consumer confidence will come back. The services sector, the trade and the hotels and restaurants will now begin to see greater economic activity finally, and that will drive the economic growth, growth upwards. But the more important thing also, I think you mentioned it yourself, is the supply response. 3 of our vaccines have been domestically produced. There are not many emerging economies in the world which have had this capability, and we've not only helped ourselves, but we've helped other countries too by exports of these vaccines. I think that's been the phenomenal achievement. I'm told that our COVID app, many countries are wanting to replicate that. As a result, I was very pleasantly surprised to get a message on my phone that now I'm eligible for the precautionary dose, because they have it all on record now. So I think our response has been quite incredible. But going forward, I think we've achieved a lot, but we can't rest on our laurels. We have to remain prepared for further challenges. Our health infrastructure overall needs to be further strengthened. The supply of health professionals who played an amazing role, amazing sacrifices, their supply needs to be strengthened. So therefore the government is opening up the medical colleges and nursing colleges across the country. And then Ayushman Bharat also, I think, will play a role here because of providing the health insurance for the less well-off. I think overall our health response has been quite remarkable, but complacency is the last thing that we can be thinking of, and we have to be prepared for the coming challenges.
And another very encouraging response of the government for the industry and for the investor has been taking the whole challenge of COVID as some kind of opportunity to push reforms. On top of IBC, RERA, GST, these kind of reforms which had happened earlier, the government went ahead and during these challenging times came out with reforms like removing retrospective taxation, which would have given big boost to the sentiments of investors. Also, the production-linked schemes for different sectors, the way it has been brought in. And there are several others you can count on. So supply-side reforms have been going on even during these challenging times. So basically, the economy, it seems, and the government, it seems that is preparing for the good times ahead to capitalize on these reforms, continue with these reforms. So how do you see this thing now playing out in next 2-3 years?
Well, I mean, what we have is that our policy approach has been based on the reforms. I mean, reforms that improve flexibility and encourage innovation in the system and deal with the uncertainty that are caused by COVID factor. Large number of reforms have been taken, deregulation of sectors like space and drones and geospatial mapping, and then you got, as you said yourself, the removal of the retrospective tax, the privatization and the asset monetization, and then the reforms also on the social sector to improve the lives of those at the bottom of the pyramid. The Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the Jal Jeevan Abhiyan, the housing for the poor, both in rural and urban areas, insurance for the poor, and then the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, along with the production-linked incentives to encourage private investment in manufacturing sector. I think all of those are a whole lot of reforms that has created the growth momentum. And these will continue. And, wherever we see a bottleneck, wherever we see inefficiencies in the public sector or otherwise, these reforms will continue. This government is in the business of recognizing supply-side bottlenecks and responding to remove them. And that is what will continue in a major way going forward.
So clean energy is also one area which has been mentioned by Economic Survey, and rightly so, or post-Glasgow conference and Prime Minister's announcement about, how India wants to tackle the clean energy and the climate action part of it. And, that has created a lot of good sentiments among the investors and also among the officials and also the whole ecosystem which is doing its bit for climate action. And India's transition from fossil fuel energy to clean energy has been quite rapid in the last 2 years, 1 or 2 years or so, and a number of policies have been coming. So how do you see new policies, new ways? And one more area where Indian government has announced that it will move rapidly is blending of ethanol to petrol. All these plans lead to a speedy process in getting towards clean energy, getting towards, speedy climate action. How do you see that?
We cannot afford to follow the example of many other countries which have said, let's grow now and retrofit later. Because we don't have that luxury. Because if we do that, then not only us, but the entire planet will go down the drain. And we have only one planet to live in. And therefore, we have taken up the challenge to have both growth as well as green growth and green transition. And all the policies are focused towards that and focused towards implementing the Prime Minister's assurance to COP26 that by 2030, India will reduce its carbon emissions by 1 billion tons and that we will become net zero by 2070. So we have to achieve that, and for that, very large number of further measures are required because our green energy is still a very small part of our total energy requirements. And therefore, what we need to do is to ramp up our waste to energy projects, and there are some that are already started, and then the methanol economy project, which also does away with any possible trade-off between fuel and food going forward, and then the reduction of energy use in our agriculture and the manufacturing sector. So the green transition is a challenge that the Prime Minister has clearly committed to take up. And the policies, therefore, of this government will be focused on achieving those commitments that have been made to the world community by India.
Another critical aspect which the survey mentions is diversification of crops in agriculture to ensure that the growth in agriculture is speedy and the farmer is also getting its remuneration. So moving away from wheat and rice economy and to more cash crops, that has been the need for quite some time. And Economic Survey rightly has mentioned that. So how do you see this movement now from here?
Well, the movement will be, of course, in the direction of crop diversification, but also at the same time, as the Prime Minister announced, I think on 16th of November, the movement will also be on encouraging agroecology by taking up in a much bigger way natural farming, which minimizes the use of chemical inputs and relies on nature and relies on local inputs to produce much better quality of agricultural output and also raise farmers' incomes through exports and better price realization. So I think agriculture transformation is on its way, and agriculture has stood up very well to the pandemic. Its rate of growth has been 3.9%. And again, I think if we adopt the agroecological measures, agriculture will also become one of the largest contributors to carbon sequestration in our country, and India will become a leader in the coming years.
And to conclude, Dr. Kumar, Air India privatization has been a big success, and Economic Survey also pitches for more disinvestment and all. So how you see this thing moving forward from here?
Well, we've already seen movement today itself after the successful decade-long Air India privatization. I think the government has announced the privatization of Neelanchal Ispat Rashtriya Nigam, NIRN, for 12,000 crores, which has been taken over by the Tatas. So the next big project has also been done, and this will continue. And the biggest news for me is that this is met with public support, who have now seen the importance of getting better efficiency in the public sector units and in government expenditure. And I think this is the very big silver lining, which is that now our privatization effort will not be hampered by misunderstanding of what its aims are and a misunderstanding of what the government policies are. I think, therefore, privatization will only gather momentum in the coming months.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman, NITI Aayog, on the Economic Survey and Prospects for Future. The interviewer was Santosh Tiwari, Economic Analyst. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. The program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about the program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.